Hi everyone, I'm James. I'm going to show you a really fun dish that you can share with all your friends. So today what we're going to be making is my favorite dish, cheeseburger nachos. You're going to get a whole mess of nachos to be able to share with everyone and all your friends. It's a nice layer of cheese and pickles and onions, something really delicious that you're going to love just dipping into a nice tasty salsa. The ingredients are as follow: ground beef, olive oil, garlic salt, salt and pepper, 1 egg, grated Parmesan, mozzarella, cheddar, smoked Gouda, diced pickles and banana hot peppers, French onion shallots, green onions, 1 can of crushed tomatoes, fresh cilantro, cumin, red wine vinegar, 2 whole avocados, and a couple of heads of Boston lettuce. Okay, so now we're gonna make this nice, thick, smooth avocado guacamole. First you gotta do is you gotta clean the avocado, remove the core, and remove the peel. So to get the core out, real easy, stick your knife in it, turn it, move it aside. Now if your avocado is ripe enough, it's gonna be really easy to remove. Quick spoon down towards the skin. As you see, it comes out real nice and clean. You do that for your both avocados. So you clean them, and then you peel them. What you're gonna wanna do after that, you're gonna wanna do a nice rough cut of the avocado. This way your avocado will be nice and tender for it to be blended in the food processor. Now you don't have to use a knife to get these. They're so nice and ripe, you can easily just break right into them. Now you just want a nice rough cut. Once you get a nice, about an even base of all the same pieces and same sizes, you can go ahead and dump that in the food processor. Now the rest of the recipe is pretty simple. What you're gonna need is you're gonna take your about a half a cup of your French onion shallots. You can use a regular spoon or an actual tablespoon to measure it out, and give about a tablespoon of pepper, a tablespoon of regular table salt, a tablespoon of cumin. Now if you really like cumin a lot, you can add a little bit more, it won't ruin it, but a tablespoon should suffice, and a tablespoon of garlic salt. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna mix this all together. As you can see, it's a nice, smooth texture. You want it to have a little pieces of onion in it, but nothing really that'll give you a big bite. Now that it's nice and smooth, you can add your coriander and just give it a rough chop. Okay, so now for the final step, we're gonna add it to the bowl and we're gonna fold in the vinegar. I use red wine vinegar because it gives a little bit of a tart and a little bit of color. So we get it all in the bowl nicely, you get your avocado, then you take your red wine vinegar, and like I said, a rough edge of just 1 tablespoon. There we go. And you're gonna fold it in nicely. This will give it a little bit of acidity. It'll bring it nicely together because the avocados are nice and sweet. It'll bring a nice balance to the dish. Okay, so now to make the salsa, we're gonna start off with a can of whole tomatoes. You can buy crushed tomatoes if you'd like, if you wanna skip a step. That's not a problem at all. Me personally, I like to crush them. So first I'm gonna drain out the juice. Now the juice is taken out, I got whole tomatoes. Me personally, I just break them up with my hand. It takes around about a minute to do so. It's a little satisfying. Oh, I get a little bit on myself. So go slow, because they're definitely gonna make a mess. Oh, there we go, more mess. Once you have all the tomatoes nicely broken down, you're just gonna really just add the rest of the ingredients. You can use a rough 1 teaspoon of pepper, 1 teaspoon of cumin, and 1 teaspoon of garlic salt. You're gonna mix in the 1, maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon of vinegar, and about a half a cup to a cup of coriander. I'm a big coriander fan, so I put it on the heavy side. Once you have this all mixed in the bowl, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna just incorporate it real nicely, put some nice blends, nice folds into it. Fold in your pepper, fold in your salt, fold in the garlic salt until everything is nicely incorporated and everything is covered in the tomatoes. You're gonna wanna go real slow here because it's got quite a bit of splatter. All right, once you get this all in, you're gonna want to turn it on and bring your salsa to a boil. Once you bring the salsa to a boil, you're gonna want to let it simmer for about 20 minutes. Once everything is nicely cooked together, you're gonna be able to take it off the stove and cool it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the main ingredient to the dish. It's gonna be the meatballs. Now, what I like to do is I cheat a little bit, but it really makes the perfect meatball. I use a cookie scoop. This is a standard cookie scoop that you generally would use to make any kind of chocolate chip cookie. Best part about this, every meatball is the same size and they all cook evenly. Now, before we start scooping, we're gonna be adding the ingredients. So it's gonna be really simple. We're gonna start off, we're gonna put a little bit of, about 2 tablespoons of oil. We're gonna put 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese, about 1 scoop of pepper, and garlic powder. We're gonna crack 1 large egg. And we're gonna put the equivalent of 2 cloves of garlic, but crushed. To mix in everything, get it nicely blended and incorporated, I like to put on a pair of rubber gloves. For one, it makes it a lot more sanitary. You have a lot of germs underneath your nails that you may not be aware of. So it's always safer to use rubber gloves. Once you get them on, you get a nice mix. So as you're mixing, you're gonna wanna really get in there so that you have no liquid, no dry, and not make it fly out the bowl. See, now everything is nicely mixed in. The meat, the egg, all the spices, everything is all one unit. So we're gonna take the baller. What you're gonna do is your first step is you're gonna grab the baller and you're gonna fill it, all right? Then you're gonna pop it out. Normally a cookie, that's all you finish with, but we're making meatballs. So once you make your ball, you're gonna roll it. The best way to roll it is you put the ball on the palm in your hand and you roll with the other hand. Your palms are nice and round, so it's gonna make a nice round ball. You're gonna place it on the side. The best way to make sure that you're not overfilling your scoop, use the side of the bowl to cut the edges. And let's make some meatballs. This is gonna make about 15 to 20 meatballs. Feeds about 4 people, but we're gonna be stacking them nice and tall. So that's why it's always better to keep them nice and small. And that's where the scoop comes in. Make sure they're all the same size. Once you get through the bowl, you're gonna get to, I said about 15, 20 meatballs. And as you can see here, they're all about the same size, which is really great because they're all gonna cook evenly and they're all gonna be nice and evenly flavored. Now that it's brought to a boil, let's bring it down to a minimum, just under minimum, just between minimum and 1, so that everything could be nice and salsa-y. Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna turn the stove down. We got the butter nicely melted, and you see that little foam on the top? That's what you're looking for. That's called browning the butter. You're gonna wanna brown it just a little bit so it's perfectly ready to cure the outside of these bad boys. So you're gonna add them in one by one. Be careful because the butter's very hot and it can splash. You're not gonna wanna overcrowd your pan because you need a little bit of space for them to move around. So you're gonna cook about half of these at a time. As you can see here, they're getting a little bit brown on the outside. That's what you want all around them. You don't wanna cook them all the way through because you're just gonna burn the butter. If you're not as experienced as me, don't necessarily shake the pan around. You can use tongs or a spatula, whatever you feel comfortable with, even a spoon. All right, so now that you see they're nicely brown, we're gonna transfer them over to the parchment paper. Again, you're not gonna wanna crowd them, but you definitely wanna be able to have enough space for all the meatballs to fit. All right, so now that we've had them all nicely browned, we're gonna add these little bad boys to the parchment paper, and then we're gonna bake them at 350 for about 15 to 20 minutes. So they're all gonna cook nice and evenly because they're all about the same size, and the whole point for the butter here is just to brown them. So once they've cooked for about 20 minutes, all the liquids are gonna come out, and they're gonna be nice and golden brown on top. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna layer the bottom, make a nice big base, and we're gonna make a nice pyramid type shape like you would with a heap full of nachos. Now to remember to, once you put out your first layer, you're gonna wanna mix the ingredients fully so that every bite is almost exactly the same. Once you got your base layered out, you're gonna wanna at least put a little bit of each cheeses to make a nice mix of each. We're using some mozzarella, some smoked Gouda, and some American orange cheddar. We're gonna put a little bit of the French chive, and then we're gonna put the mix of pickle and hot pepper, the banana pepper, and you're gonna wanna layer this out nicely so it's nicely in each little hole. Once you finish one layer, you start back up again. You're gonna put a few less on top of this one. Don't be shy to be a little bit rough with it. You gotta push it down a little bit so everything doesn't move once it all starts to melt. Now that I got my second layer, I'm gonna put, again, the 3 cheeses. For the 3 cheeses, I say put about a cup each. I'm more of a person who likes a little bit more cheese, but obviously if you wanna be a little bit more friendly on a diet or you don't wanna eat too much dairy, you can always put a half a cup each. And once you get to the tippy top, you can actually put a few here and just fill in the negative spaces so that you get a nice little bite there. What you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna put all the cheeses up and around so that it melts over each ball. Don't be afraid to get a little personal with it. All right, now that we got our cheeses, we're gonna gonna put a little more pickles and hot peppers. You're gonna wanna finish on top with the French onion shallots. They're gonna get nice and brown and caramelized on the inside. The sugars will really come out once they've been nicely broiled. So once we put them back into the oven, make sure your oven's on broil. Since your oven's already pretty hot, you're not gonna wanna leave it in for more than 5 minutes. Okay, now that it's been in the oven for about 5 minutes, we're gonna pull it out now that it's all nice and brown on the outside and the cheese is all nicely melted. What I like to do is I like to cut around the parchment paper just to make it a little bit easier to maneuver, and this way you don't have to remove it off the pan. You just simply cut around it. Be careful, the pan's a little bit hot. So you're gonna cut around the pan. Now you have your extra parchment paper, and now you can simply just lift it off the pan and place it into your plate. Take your little bit of garnish. You got your 2 sides and your leaf lettuce. So the reason why I really like to use Boston lettuce, the leaves are nice and big and they make a real easy grab. So what I like to do is I grab my ball and cheese, a little bit of guacamole, and a little bit of salsa. It's a little bit messy, I won't lie, but it's really worth it. Okay, so now I get to have the best part. I get to share this with my friends. Come on in, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really hope you enjoy this. Make it with your friends and family and enjoy.